G'day guys, hope we are all kicking ass, taking names. It is the coach here. Hope you are rolling lots of sixes. And I've been waiting for this episode for a long time because I thought if any army in Broken Realms Morathi was going to get an FAQ change and I had to hold off list talking, it was the Stormcast. And lo and behold, we got our FAQ. I'm not going to dwell on it. If you want to know FAQ stuff, go watch the video. But more importantly, I want to talk Stormcast Eternals. I am pleasured on a Saturday night. Oh God, thankfully we don't have Pat on the line here, but we do have the Overlord, Joel McGrath himself. Joel is I called you Joe for some reason. Joel is an amazing competitive player. Has played at the Australian Masters. Is a consistent podium player when it comes to match play events, and I thought. Based on your experience, you would be a wonderful person to talk to me about the wonders of Broken Realms Morathi. But g'day.
G'day, mothers and fathers. I had to correct myself there for a sec. Thanks for having me on, Coach. It's great to be here again. Really looking forward to talking about Stormcast. So let's get on.
I love it. And hello, everyone in the chat and the mighty DMT saying Joe doesn't know nothing about Stormcast. Yep, Joe. And the slight to Pat was I love Pat. Yeah, he's amazing. But he would have taken what I said and just run with it for 5 minutes. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go see our faction focus with Korn, because I'm surprised he didn't demonetize my channel at that point. But Joel, again, I mentioned, very, very competitive player, always at the podium, podcast host, or I guess co-host of Bush Radio. You got an event coming up pretty soon that I'm going to be attending. But let's talk this army. Let's talk Stormcast, because this is an interesting one. And before we started, the chat was talking about, old Stormcast, and they're like, old Stormcast doesn't get a lot of love. But ironically enough, in my opinion, just on how I looked at Broken Realms Morathi, old Stormcast got a lot of the first edition Stormcast seems to have a bit of a renaissance. Is that how you're kind of seeing Broken Realms Morathi?
A bit, yeah. It's definitely a blast from the past. I actually made my debut onto the Australian tournament scene at CanCon back when Vanguard Wing was a thing. And old naive me didn't even realise that it was like being sort of listed at the time. So took that, got flying in blind, and things happened to Vanguard Wing. But then now we're here a couple of years later, and couldn't be more excited, really. It's great to get the Liberators back on the table.
And when I talk old Stormcast, I'm talking about like OG 2016, 2017, the guys who are opening up the realm gates, our prosecutors, our liberators, our judicators, our Lord-Celestant on the Dracoth, like OG. We're not talking about your little wizardy Stormcast. We're not talking about the little Knight in Cantor. We're talking OG Stormcast.
Yep. First Age of Sigmar starter box.
Those little monotoes, like little hammer and shield. But they were like I remember reading the rules for Broken Realms Morathi, and I was just blown away. And I'm like, libs are back. I remember playing a game of Blood and Glory where a unit of 30 Stormcast Liberators dropped in my line. They were staunch defended. They just wouldn't go for like 5 rounds. Like my poor free people at the time didn't even have Cities of Sigmar. Like this is before Cities of Sigmar. But there was this time where Liberators just absolutely wrecked the meta. Prosecutors, I remember Chris Welfare, and I think it was Tim McDivitt at the first Masters before you guys had jumped into the scene. Round 5, it was Warrior Brotherhood versus Warrior Brotherhood, and I just sat there. I think with Dan Say, it was like it was basically like dwarves versus Empire, and like they were behind us, and I just laughed our ass off at them. Like, you guys deserve each other.
Yeah, that's right.
But okay, all right, we kind of look. I'm excited to see Liberators back, and there's some cool rules, and I thought, I'd love to hear your thoughts in a minute. But it was very different. Like when I looked at the Stormkeep rules, so I guess for anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about here, Broken Realms is a book that came out in November 2020, approximately. It's a story arc. It's a progression of the story in Age of Sigmar. It's the first of the narrative, and Inside the book, there was also some additional rules for Daughters of Cain, for Iden the Deepkin, Stormcast, 2 Cities of Sigmar builds, as well as a Slaves to Darkness build. So we had some additional rules in there, and the Stormcast one were a little bit different. The Stormcast got some rules that kind of almost override your allegiance rules. So it's almost like you don't get to choose both. You get to choose one or the other. And I thought that was quite interesting. Joel, what was your initial take with the Broken Realms Morathi Stormcast, I guess the rules, or like what it was bringing to the table?
Yeah, it was really good to see more than just one allegiance ability for the army. When it comes down to it, Stormcast only have one, like in their battle tome, which is just the deep strike, Sign of the Storm, whatever it is. And yeah, so it was good to actually have a few different rules, and then sure, you lose the teleport, but then you can add in free city units, and it's just really cool. It really spices up the faction and just gives you a heap more options when it comes to list building. So I was really pleased to see it.
Yeah, so the Scions of the Storm, which people know, you put one model, one unit in the sky for every one on the table, and then when they come down, it was at -1 to hit and -1 bravery or something. Those rules you can choose to ignore and instead get a bunch of different rules. So, and Joel is going to take us through, I guess, the rules in a minute, as well as maybe some builds. And I think the good thing as well, guys, is that while you might lose those things called Scion of the Storm and things like that, you do still get to keep your Anvils of Heldenhammer, your Hammers of Sigmar. Those types of sub-allegiance rules still stay. The artifacts still stay. You don't lose anything other than your little drop from the sky and your little -1. And people are giving me grief, by the way, that I'm wearing the singlet, despite it being 32 degrees at 8:30 p.m. So get off my back. Get off my back. I don't normally wear singlets on but it's now currently in summer in Australia and it's hot. So screw you. Joel's like, no comment. All right, let's get into Joel's being on his best behavior, being on my podcast. Go listen to Bush Radio. Go jump on the podcast later, and you'll see the roles reversed. But
yeah, definitely Joel, 18 plus adults only.
It's like the old AO adults only label. But talk me through what you get. So we're going to sacrifice the allegiance rule for Stormcast. So we're not going to be able to get our dropping from the sky rules. But what we do get is the Storm Host rules. And also, by the way, this was slightly FAQ'd in January. So just as an FYI, there's go check that out. But talk to me about the Storm Host. What is the Storm Host, and how is it different to your previous builds? And what are some of the considerations that you bring to your army that maybe you weren't thinking about pre-Broken Realms Morathi?
Well, the Storm Host part, that's just like your Hammers of Sigmar and all that. So all that still gets ported over. It's just...
So you still get your Hammer of Sigmar, your Hallowed Knight, you still get your Celestial Vindicator. So basically all that stuff remains same, but it's the Scions of the Storm and what's it called? What's the -1 to hit rule? It's the...
I think that's still in that.
The Shock and Awe, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you lose Shock and Awe and Scions of the Storm, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, but you do get the Shield of Civilization.
Yeah, which is really awesome because those Liberators we were just talking about before get really good with this rule. So they give +1 bravery to all other units that are within 12 of them, which is awesome. And they also get +1 to hit and save if they don't move in the movement phase. So you can still charge, you can still pile in, you just can't move in the movement phase. And they're now rocking 3-up saves, re-rolling 1s, and hitting on 3s normally. So really good battle line for 90 points.
So what you're going to get is you're going to get your Shield of Civilization, which is adding 1 to the bravery characteristic of friendly Stormcast Eternals when they're wholly within 12 inches of a friendly Liberator. And some people might go, well, why am I taking Liberators? You'll start to see when we get to the battalions, and maybe as we get to more of these rules, why Liberators are kind of being promoted as opposed to Sequitors and some of the other battle line roles. Cool, nothing else. You've also got your mortal auxiliaries, which 1 in 4 so 1 in every 4 of the units in your Stormkeep army can be Cities of Sigmar. Add 1 to the bravery characteristic when they're wholly within 12 inches of a Liberator unit. And yeah, so I think that got changed. That last bit got changed.
No, they get +1 bravery as well. The Liberators. That's Sorry, I was jumping ahead.
Yeah,
so plus +1 bravery, and then everything else is +1 bravery around them.
And then in addition, when you pick a unit to benefit from the storm, so the commander's ability from Battle Tome Stormcast Eternal, treat them as if they had the Stormcast keyword. So you could buff a Cities of Sigmar unit that was brought in 1 in 4. It's not an ally. You can't make it your general, so you can't bring in a free guild general. You can't bring that tax down. But you can bring in 1 in 4 Stormcast, so 1 in 4 Cities of Sigmar, which potentially is quite cool. I imagine it brings in some cheap screens. It could bring in a wizard. It could bring in a nice little combat monster that isn't a Star Drake. What are your thoughts initially on maybe some of the allies or the things that you'd want to bring in from cities?
Yeah. So one thing that Stormcast have always fundamentally never had is bodies. So it's just really good to be able to get, as you're saying, the screens or big blocks of 40 free guild guard, for example, or big unit of Longbeards or whatever, just to bolster your force up a bit and have a bit more board presence. Stormcast, in a nutshell, is a very elite army. So it's always good just to have the extra bits and pieces in there, just to sort of keep on the board.
Yeah, it brings a lot of interesting builds, and we'll get to 2 of your builds in a minute. But, if you are a big fan of the Frost Phoenix, for example, and give yourself a -1 to wound aura, the Fire Phoenix, and, when that dies on a 4+, it comes back to life at full wounds. It could be, as you mentioned, a unit of Iron Drakes or handgunners or crossbowmen or Free Guild Guard. It could be a Hurricanum or a Luminarch. There's just so many. Cities of Sigmar is just as big as Stormcast, so it really does unlock a lot of builds. But I think the key, though, is that you don't get the Stormcast, or you're not going to get the Hammers of Sigmar keyword, for example. So the synergies aren't as strong as when Cities of Sigmar brings in a Stormcast unit, because they do get Tempest Eye, Hallow Heart. It works the other way, but it doesn't work with cities coming into Stormcast.
Yeah, so a good example of the way that it works is what are the shooting dwarf unit called?
Iron Drakes.
Iron Drakes, yeah. So people, when they originally read this, they thought that they could double tap Iron Drakes with the Anvils command ability. You can't do that. However, you can give them, say, off the Lord-Celestant on foot, he has a nice little command ability which is +1 to hit. So you can put that onto, say, a unit of Hammerers, for example. Now they're hitting on 2s or whatever. So, it's only off the War Scrolls, not off the extra Allegiance stuff layered on.
So do keep an eye out for your keywords, especially when you're looking at cities. So you won't find as many synergies as you would find, again, as I mentioned, the reverse. But overall, I think it's really cool, especially the cheap screens, whether it's Flagellants that are dirt cheap, the Free Guild Guard are dirt cheap. There's a couple of very cheap battle line roles that are available, or even just troops in general that have some screens.
Yep. Yeah, again, having Free Guild Guard as battle line in a Stormcast list is just really cool. They're the cheapest, so it frees up another 10 points, and more bodies, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, just to have a screen even to to block your bodies. You're also going to get a whole bunch of battalions. No, you get 3 battalions. On the first page, you get the Warden of the Stormkeep, you get the Storm Tower Garrison, as well as the Stormkeep Patrol. You also get a Mega Battalion, as well as what is essentially a named character. Van Breck's got a battalion. So there's 4 kind of battalions you kind of get. The Mega Battalion's usually a bit hard to run. But what are your thoughts on the battalions? When I was looking over them, there was at least 2 that I really liked, possibly 3. And I know, again, we're going to talk about some of your lists and see what you've brought in and how you built it. But what was your overall observation of the battalions?
Really unique, really fulfilling of the army. So it takes up a large portion, which is always what you want if you're running a battalion. And just sort of really flexible and have some cool rules, really. I was really happy to see them because I think it was the battle tome previous to the current one had a lot of really unique and sort of mixed battalions for Stormcast. So they had like a Star Drake with prosecutors and some Vanguard stuff. And, I'm really missing that with this army because they've got so many models, but none of it sort of gels together. So this is kind of taking a step in that direction where they can all sort of work with each other again.
So just for anyone on the podcast who doesn't have Broken Realms Morathi and you want to know what those battalions are, I guess the three core ones you're likely to see. The first one, the Wardens of the Stormkeep, you get one Lord-Celestant keyword. So that I assume gets you a Dracoth. What else can be on what else is a Lord-Celestant? Is there one on a Star Drake?
There is, but you can't take them in the battalion. You can't take monsters in them. So,
of course, that's what's and when I got to that, I was just trying to think of the Lord-Celestant. If I literally skim my eyes two rows down, I would also see that I can take 2 to 5 other Stormcast Eternals heroes. This battalion can only be including in a Stormkeep army, so I can't bring this into my Stormcast book. It has to be using the Broken Realms Morathi build, and it can't include any monsters. So that's going to rule us out with the Star Drake.
Yeah, important to note with the Lord-Celestant keyword too, you can have Gavriel Shawheart and also Vandus Hammerhand if you want to add those guys in as well. So there's a bit of options there just for that one keyword.
And because it's keyworded, there's definitely a whole bunch of options. Really good call out, especially for some people who may not be looking at the keyword bingo that sometimes we get to play. And if you do take the Wardens of the Stormkeep at the start of your first hero phase, roll 1 dice for each hero in the battalion, add 3 to the roll if the hero is your general. On a 5+ or a 2+ for your general, you would receive 1 extra command point. So does that mean I should take 6 heroes in this battalion and try to get myself a whole bunch of extra free CP, or do you think this one's not that worth it?
You can. I think in my list, one of the lists I've submitted to you is using all 6 of those slots, but it's just a really good way of decreasing your drops because people don't normally look at the hero options as something that takes them up. But if you're having 4, 5, 6 heroes, that's 4, 5, 6 drops, right? So you do have the Celestant tax, unfortunately, but he can still be useful. But he's only 100 points as well as the cheapest option, so it's not so bad. But with those 2 to 5, they can be sacrosanct, so they can be wizards, they can be Lord Aquila. There's a whole heap of flexibility in here, and that's what makes this battalion so good.
I was going to say,
not to mention all the CPs.
I was going to say, other than the Lord-Celestant, which may or may not be a tax, depending on, you might already be running a Lord-Celestant, so it's not even a tax. The fact that you don't have to name the other heroes. It can be literally, an Azeroth, a Venator, a Relector, any type of part of the Stormcast. You're always going to take multiple heroes. So the fact that you can get yourself some additional CP, I think is a really cool one to consider. You've got the Storm Tower Garrison, which is 1 Knight Vexillor, 2 to 4 units of Liberators, 1 to 2 units of Paladin, and 1 to 2 Justicar units. So, and what you're going to get for that one is that the Paladins and the Justicar units from the battalion that are wholly within 12 of Liberator units from the same battalion can use the Shield of Civilization battle trait in the same manner as a Liberator unit. Now,
so that's +1 bravery, +1 to hit, and +1 to save. If they don't move. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that one?
It's all right. I think it sort of hems you into having to take those Paladin units, but if you combine this with say, the hero battalion, Wardens of the Stormkeep, you're going to have a few heroes anyway. So you could throw in, what are they, Protectors. They're normally pretty good. They give you a bit more defense against shooting and all that. Then the Justicar keyword, that's really good to have that there instead of just being stuck with, say, Liberators. Judicators. So Judicators do have the Justicar keyword. So do Castigators, and then also Vanguard Raptors.
Yeah. I was going to say, if you're going to run your Anvils of Heldenhammer, and you already wanted to run your Vanguard Raptors, and you probably got some cheap Judicators, this one might work quite well for you because it's kind of already the stuff that you're taking.
Yeah, it's just a really good battalion because it's so many sort of points and units all combined into one. The only downside is that one hero, but the Vexilla is not actually so bad. It gives you army reroll charge rolls if you're wholly within 12 inches of it, I think. So it's not so bad. He can also come with a teleport banner. So I think, a lot of people are familiar with that. If you're not, once per game, he can just pick a unit up anywhere off the board and then redeploy it in one way. So he's actually kind of a pretty good hero to have in your back pocket.
Even if you were running old Stormcast where you've got, your 1 and 2 can come from the sky, Stormcast are traditionally slow army, and I know the Knight Vexillor with that banner has been a wonderful little way to kind of reposition them late game, kind of once they've dropped on the floor. But without those rules in the Stormkeep, that banner is probably not a little bad, especially repositioning your whether you take your Hurricane crossbows or whatever it might be. That could work quite well with your Vanguard Raptors.
Yep.
And then we've also got the Stormkeep Patrol, which is going to be 1 Lord-Veritant, 1 unit of Gryph-hounds, 2 Redeemer or Justica units in any combination. And this one's a really interesting one. Like, look at that big block of text. After armies are set up, but before the first battle round begins, you can remove the units from this battalion from the battlefield. If you do so, you must then set up the Lord-Veritant from the battalion anywhere from the battlefield more than 9 inches from an enemy. Standard kind of teleporting rules. And then set up the other units wholly within 12 inches of the Lord-Veritant and more than 9 from the enemy. So it's essentially like you set up your army and then you get to reposition them and put them anywhere on the board. So that sounds broken. And the Gryph-hounds are an interesting one when you start looking at what the Gryph-hounds do when things are set up. But what are your thoughts on this particular battalion?
Well, this is the main talking point of this entire podcast, right? The Stormkeep Patrol is arguably the best battalion that Stormcast have now, especially when you're playing it in the Stormkeep. Well, you've got no choice, but yeah. So Stormkeep Patrol, this is the army where you put 60 Liberators into it. You're 9 inches away from your opponent before the game even starts. You're going to be super low drops. And you can just start scoring objectives real early and have your entire army just where they need to be before the game even begins.
So your Redeemer, so Joel, correct me if I'm wrong, the Redeemers are your Sequitors and your Liberators?
Correct, yep.
And then as we mentioned previously, the Justicar are your Castigators, your Vanguard Raptors, and your Judicators.
That's right. Yep,
so
all the shooty boys.
So you can go full ham and just absolutely have, drop a whole bunch of, Hurricane crossbows, being inside of, is it 18, whatever. I know it's short range. Throw down the Hurricanes. You could go, as you said, massive stack of Liberators, just 9 inches from your face. I did see some early talk about, is it the Gav bomb, the old Gavriel Shawheart allows you to, throw down those extra CPs and, basically guarantee yourself a charge. I think this was the battalion I was worried was going to get a massive FAQ, and like Lord Croak, it's like it doesn't even exist in the FAQ world. So it is as written, no changes, and I'm scared as hell to face this because this is going to be nasty.
130 points too. But look, honestly, Liberators aren't what they used to be. So while you've got twice as many, they're not. It's not Vanguard wing levels are stupid. And hyper damage that's in the game these days, you can do 60 wounds to a unit. in a phase if you need to. So honestly, it's all that Stormcast really have going for it at the moment. If you're going to be playing like more of a horde style army, it is good, but it definitely has limitations.
Sure, it's not like anyone like me who has battle scars for old Stormcast. I think the key difference is that the old Warrior Brotherhood can drop from the sky and didn't have to be within 9 inches. It could literally teleport into combat with Staunch Defender, and that was nasty. But no, and as Connor has said in the chat as well, the Celestial Templar pre-game move could be a nice little addition to the Stormkeep Patrol. So while we might be looking at hammers and we might look at Tempest Lords, there is obviously a lot of different builds for the various sub-allegiances, whether you want to go Astral Templars, Anvils of Heldenhammer. There's a place for a lot of these battalions, depending on how you like to build your army. Joel, so what were you going to say?
Yeah, and I really rate the Astral Templar version of this. That's what I started running originally, but I did end up on hammers just because it's, I don't know, it's just better. They don't need to be in combat, so why move them closer? That's the way I look at it. They don't do any damage, they just stay there.
And that's what you need to do, like just sit on an objective and stop me from getting there. The last thing you've got the Van Brecht. So Van Brecht is a named character. It is a Lord-Veritant. So there's a couple of named characters. Van Brecht doesn't have a war scroll, so it's not like you get a new war scroll. You're just using a named Lord-Veritant. And there is a battalion that also has one Gryph-hound, 1 to 2 Judicators, 1 unit of Castigators. The units from the battalion must be Anvils of Heldenhammer, and then there's 2 different rules. What are your thoughts on that battalion? I don't have it on screen, but
it's basically the same as Stormkeep Patrol, except it has 3 units in it instead of 2. But you are stuck with what are they? Judicators and Castigators. So if you want to go full ham in just double tap shooting in turn 1, you can with that list. So 40 Judicators shooting twice, and I think you can fit in about 15 Castigators, CP, and a unit of Free Guild Guard, and that's your army.
I will say what's cool is that we do have Shootcast, the very especially Anvils of Heldenhammer build, but then we have seen a more combat focus. So I think regardless of how you want to build Stormcast, we do have some options. But let's actually the fans want to see you give them away. Give them a wave. Everyone wants to see Joel.
Hello, how you going?
I think in 3 years, it's the first time people have asked
all the measured guys in the chat. Yeah.
Oh, shout out to Measured Gaming. I'll see you guys in a month's time. I'm so excited to I feel like I'm going to get punished out in Bendigo.
Oh, yeah. Don't you worry about it. You'll be sleeping with one eye open, mate.
I don't have any friends there. Are you worried? So the first one we're going to talk about is I said hammers, right? I said we're going to talk hammers of Sigmar. So the first list we're going to go through is probably the more complicated of the 2 builds. Talk to me about hammers. You obviously got the First of the Forge. You've got yourself the Soul of the Stormhost. You've got yourself a command trait, Hammers of Sigmar, and then you've also got your artifact, which is the Godforged Blade. Talk to me, when you were building your list, why did you take hammers as opposed to, as you said, Astral Templars or some other type of build? Like, what was it in hammers that grabbed your attention, and how were you thinking about it when you started building that list?
Yeah, 2 reasons. Firstly was just the actual ability, which is +1 bravery army-wide. That's quite handy on Stormcast because they are multi-wound, and funnily enough, they don't have the highest bravery base. Like I think they've been bumped up to 7 now. So I mean, it's all right, but it's when you take a few casualties and you roll on that battleshock dice, it's just horrible. So yeah, +1 bravery is always nice. On top of then like the Liberators, Shield Citizen, whatever their rule is, where they give +1 bravery to everything else. So now you're on +2 bravery. Right? Mainly though, the command ability. When a unit of Redeemers die, you spend a CP on a 5-up. That unit comes back full strength, 9 inches away from you. So yeah.
So with that, obviously, using Maths Hammer here, that means 1 in every 3 units is likely to come back on a CP. Does that mean that you're thinking about having lots of little units with the better chance of regenerating, or are you just building maximum size units and just hoping for the best? How does the 5+ come into play? Because 5+ is, again, 1 in 3. So it's a tough little one to get.
Yeah. If you're building like a heavy command point sort of generating army, then yes, you can go smaller units to make the most of that. Because of 1 in 3, you're going to get some eventually. But then there's that other alternative where you've just got a couple of big units, and if you do roll that 5 up after they've had to kill like a unit of 30 liberators over 3 turns, and they come back, that's the game really. That's so game changing. Just that 1 dice roll. That's what I love. I played Beast of Chaos for that 1 dice roll, and that's what this is. So.
I think the key thing is to always have that additional CP up your sleeve so you can take advantage. The last thing you want to do is you lose those 30 liberators and you don't have a CP to spend, or you're worried about being double turned. And I think, as you mentioned as well, the additions to the bravery through the Stormkeep and the First of the Forged means that you're less likely to be spending your CP on Inspiring Presence. So there's a nice little combination there, but again, a 5+ means you're going to fail more times than you succeed. So keep that in mind. Don't be disappointed when your 30 liberators don't come back, because statistically it's unlikely. But when it does come back and then you can drop it anywhere on the battlefield just outside of 9, that is so demoralizing.
Yeah. It's one of those things when you finish your game and you're talking to people about how it went. And then, you're like, and then they killed them. And then I rolled that 5 up, and it's just, it's huge. Huge if you roll that 5+. Yeah.
Anything else from Hammers that kind of brought your attention, or was it mostly the addition to the bravery and the being able to bring the unit back at 5+ for a CP?
The command trait's not bad. It's a 6-up Feel No Pain, or whatever you want to call it, DPR, holding within 9 inches of the general. So it's a nice little bubble. And it just keeps you around for a bit longer. So, the artifact's not bad for a tax one, but there's nothing to write home about. On a 6 to hit was an extra damage. So
+1 damage characteristics. It's not bad, but
it's meh. The other 3 things you take it,
Yeah, the other 3 things are quite strong. So that's the Hammers. That's your Hammers of Sigmar rules. And I guess let's get to the list and let's actually get into the science behind what you put together. So I'll read out the list, and I'd love to understand a little bit about how and why this all comes about, and maybe why you chose X unit as opposed to Y unit. And we'll get to the little bit of the science here. But we have a Lord-Celestant on Dracoth, which is the general. It has the We Cannot Fail, which is the command trait from Hammers. We've got our Tempestos, Hammer, and Thunder Shield. We have the artifact of the Godforged Blade, again being forced upon us through the Hammers. We've also got the mount trait of Keen Clawed. Yep. You've also got yourself a Lord-Celestant with the Fury brand Mystic Light. You've also got a Lord-Celestant. You've got 2 Lord-Celestants, one with an artifact. Castellant, sorry. You've got yourself a Lord-Veritant, which has the Lantern of the Tempest Mystic Light, as well as a Prayer of Divine Light. You've also then got yourself 6 Gryph-hounds. That's coming through the battalion. We've got ourselves 30 Liberators with 6 Grand Hammers. They've got the Warhammer and Shield. 30 Liberators, again, Warhammer and Shield with 6 Grand Hammers. We've also got ourselves 10 Free Guild Guard. Interesting note, guys. Free Guild Guard are battle line with no condition. So they can be brought into an army like this, and it doesn't require you have a Free Guild General to make it a battle line. It's not a Cities of Sigmar battle line. It is just Order battle line. The last thing you've got yourself is 2 battalions. You've got the Stormkeep Patrol. And then we've got Wardens of the Stormkeep. So we've got ourselves the CP generator, as well as to pick up a whole bunch of units and throw them up the board.
Yeah. So this list is 3 drops. Don't think it's quite 2,000 on the nose either. So there's a chance for a triumph, which is always nice.
1980.
1980.
173 wounds. Things that you would not expect to see in a Stormcast. That is Goblin-esque.
It's actually more than that because you get an extra 3 free Gryph-hounds. So that's another 9 wounds on top. So it's actually 182.
And then bring back 30 Liberators as another 6 free wounds.
Yeah. I just want to say now, Gryph-hounds, especially the solo models, like just from the Castellants and the Veritant, are so underrated and so awesome. They're the goodest boys in the mortal realms, and after they pile on an attack, they can move away 6 inches, and that is so clutch sometimes. Like if someone charges you off their objective, you just got that one guy that no one cares about who's now running around stealing the objective. So it actually happened in a battle report last night against Dave. So go like and subscribe to Measured Gaming on YouTube.
What's the battle? It's Stormcast versus
More Tribes.
Cool. All right, so guys, go check out, go see this in action. So it's Stormcast versus More Tribe on Measured Gaming YouTube. So
yeah, so I just want
go
to
see this in action.
Add the Gryph-hound part in there because they're really good.
Well, I used to run the Gryph-hound when you could take the Excelsior Warrior Priest back in the day. So I used to love that little free Gryph-hound. But look, hey, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about these guys. So take me from the top. Obviously, we've got to take our Lord-Celestant. Why the Dracoth and why the combination that you've made up?
Yep. So the Celestant on Dracoth is he's a little bit of a beat stick, if I'm honest. He's rocking a 3-up save, and he's naturally re-rolling 1s, which if those re-rolls are successful, they dish a mortal wound out to each enemy unit within 3 inches. So, he can sort of hang around for a bit, and he can also dish it out too, just from that. And then his attacks. So the Dracoth itself is awesome. You roll a 6 to wound. It's neg 3 rend with Keen Clawed, and it does D6 damage.
I'm reading Keen Claw again. I'm like, Rend 3 is nasty. And the mount has how many attacks? It's
I think it's 3. 4. 3.
3.
Yeah. So
3.
it's 4 in this list. Yeah.
How's it 4?
Just with the Fury brand, Mystic Light down below. So we'll talk about that in a sec. Yeah.
Cool. All right.
So that if you spike that, it goes bananas, and it's pretty cool. And then his hammer, he gets an extra D3 attacks on the charge. So he starts with 3, I think. So you go up to 6, and it's neg 1 D3 damage, which is always nice. It can also be +1 damage. You roll a 6 to hit. So a lot to remember, but a lot going around as well. The damage.
It is a chunky war scroll. You get the additional damage as it when you do an unmodified hit roll of 6. You've got yourself, the glaive doing 2 extra damage. If they made a charge move, there's a lot of rules here. But most importantly, 3-up armor save, 7 wounds. Quite generous when you look at just the sheer amount of damage that this can do for what is essentially attacks in the battalion. So you're making the most of your battalion.
Yeah, there's also another reason why he's in there for. His command ability is really good when you're playing this style of army, because for 1 CP, he's got a 24-inch immune to battle shock bubble, which can also work on the Free Guild Guard, because it's on a war scroll, so they count as being a Stormcast unit when you use a command ability like that. So yeah, it's just food for thought. Pretty handy.
Well, it just means you're spending your command points in potentially regenerating your units or spending them elsewhere. So the fact that you have a 24-inch, basically inspiring presence is quite attractive.
Yeah, he's also got that larger base, like on the big cav. So that 9-inch Feel No Pain bubbles, it's a bit bigger than what it would be just on a regular foot guy. So yeah, that's why he's in the list for.
Oh, I like it. Now talk to me about our 2. Well, what next? What do you want?
Yeah, so we'll just keep going down the list. So the 2 Castellants, one of them has the Fury brand Mystic Light. You could do away with this and put something else in. It's just seasoned to taste for me. But basically, I just pick a friendly Stormcast Eternals hero within 6 inches, and I add 1 to one of their weapons attacks. So put that on the Dracoth and let that go nuts. But yeah, basically what they're doing, so they come with the free Gryph-hound, as I said before, but they can also, they've got a 18-inch Holy Within +1 to save. So they can put the +1 to save on each of the 30 Liberator units after they've dropped down, especially if they've deployed on the line. So, yeah, quite handy.
And that
Get that 4 up down to a 3 up.
How are you getting the Lord-Castellant up with the Liberators though? Because
Totally
you're
an 18.
Because your Lord,
so
obviously,
exactly,
because your Lord-Veritant is taking the units with them, but it's been making sure that Lord-Celestant is going to have the ability to use the 18-inch range.
When you think about a unit jumping across the board before the game starts, they can't actually go as far as what you think, because I think a lot of people still have old Vanguard wing in their head when they're getting deployed right up in your grill and all that. But these still have to be 9 away. So if you've got a 24-inch gap and they're 9 away, they're wholly 18 anyway for the most part. So yeah, it's not that hard to do.
Let alone any of those deployment maps where we've got a 15-inch deployment map and there's only 18 between us. So then you're outside of 9. You've only gained yourself basically a free 9-inch move. So
it's not that much.
I mean, a free 9-inch move is nice. It's free. But I think the key thing I'm hearing is make sure that you are within your buff range of 18. Don't go too aggressive and go attack a flank, because you're going to miss out on some sweet additional abilities.
Yeah, you just got to make sure that when you deploy them that they're wholly within 18 inches of the Castellant, who's responsible to give them a +1 save. Yeah,
within hero phase, or when does that come in?
In hero phase.
Okay, so yeah.
So the battalion moves pre-game, and then the first hero phase. Cool.
I was just thinking, it's not like it's in a movement phase or a combat phase where you might be able to move it 4 or 5 inches to get itself in the 18. So it's just be mindful of it right at the start that you stay within 18.
Yep. Next down the line is the Veritant, who's in the Stormkeep battalion. Obviously he's necessary to be in there, but he's also a priest, and he can also unbind one spell, I think. So it's always nice to have a little bit of magic defense. So his prayer, probably the best prayer in the book, closely followed by translocation, which is the teleport one. But Divine Light has 2 modes, so I can pick a friendly unit to reroll 1s to hit, I think it is. But then where it's key is I can pick an enemy unit older than 18 on a 3+. They have to reroll hit rolls of 6. So you've got, say, 20 shooty snakes that are floating around the meta at the moment. You can just make them reroll their 6s to hit, and they're not doing any mortal wounds anymore. So really handy.
There's a lot of units. I think of Blight Kings. There's a lot of units that trigger an ability on a 6. So being able to turn that off, mortal wounds in addition, double attacks if you roll a 6. There's
the best one I ever got this off on. Best one I ever got this off on was a unit of 20 Hearthguard Berserkers with the mortal wound pole axes. They did nothing against the unit of Liberators, so yeah, that was good. But and then his Lantern, so his Mystic Light Lantern of the Tempest, that's so wholly within 12-inch bubble. Missile weapons being shot at anything inside that bubble has to reroll 6s to hit. So yeah, it's got a little bit of defense built in just off that one hero.
Yeah, I like it. I do like the idea as well as translocation as well. So even if you weren't taking this particular build, having a Lord-Veritant with that translocation and being able to move things around can also be beneficial. But Divine Light, just the flexibility of being able to choose what you want to do and being able to shut down, like we saw in Australia, we had a 50-player tournament not long ago, and the list that won it went 6-0 with Daughters of Cain, a big block of, I think it was like 20 of the bow snakes doing mortal wounds in addition on 6s. So being able to shut that type of thing off. I was just having a look. Like it's not a melee. It's not a. It's just unmodified 6s. Yeah, it's not specified in melee or shooting. It's everything. Yep. So being able to shut those off, especially Daughters of Cain is quite strong, and snakes in the meta. I like it.
Yep. Yeah. Veritant also comes with a free Gryph-hound too, and so you've got 3 singles running around zoning off the backfield, because most of your army is far forward in this list. So having 3 single models, they can zone off pretty much the entire backboard, just with your 9-inch gaps and all that. So very handy.
I imagine you've got 2 Castellants because you want 1 for each unit of Liberators. Is that
Correct, yeah.
Is that correct?
That is bang on.
Yeah. Just like it. So you're building in redundancy, or you're building in just a power pair at minimum. So some people might be thinking, oh well, should I just take 1? And the answer is no, because you're supporting the other block of Liberators.
Yes. Yeah, you don't want 1 that's going to be easier to get rid of. The whole idea of this army is to not die. And then if it does die, like if you go up against, say, Feck or whatever, and they just eat 30 Liberators off the table in one go, then they can potentially come back, right? So, yeah.
Talk to me about the Gryph-hounds, because I haven't used Gryph-hounds since they got... So they used to be 40 points for 1, and you didn't have to take a block of 6. And I would run 2, often 3, and have like a little triangle in my deployment zone. But I haven't run them as a block of 6. So because I look at that and go 120 points for 6 models. Like that's a big tax potentially for the battalion, but you do get some interesting rules. What makes this attractive to you? Why do you like Gryph-hounds? Or is it just a tax?
It's a bit of both. So they are a requirement in the Stormkeep Patrol Battalion, which, whatever. But in Stormcast Eternals, Gryph-hounds and Etherwings are tied for cheapest wounds per point. So I think they're like 6.67 points per wound. Which is good, just to have a nice little unit which can run around and do some funky stuff. So they still can move, charge, pile in, attack, and then do their 6-inch retreat. It's just 6 models instead of that single. So they do come in handy. They've actually won me a game before, that unit at 6. Being able to... I think I was playing Starstrike, and it seems they're quicker than most Stormcast stuff. I think they're 9-inch move. Landed that charge that they needed to, piled in, and then ran off 6 onto the objective again. So,
it's interesting. Tax. It's interesting because the rule that I always used to love for the Gryph-hound, other than being a cheap objective scorer or a cheap objective holder, I always loved the warning cry rule, which basically, if a unit is set up from reserve and it comes out within 10 inches of the Gryph-hounds, it basically like a little barking dog, kind of like yep, and basically alerts your shooting dudes to like pop a cap at anyone who pops up within 10 inches of your Gryph-hound. So the irony of it all is that the teleporting shenanigans that you have, the best counter will be to take Gryph-hounds and shoot them as you pop in, just outside of 9. So the irony, Gryph-hound meta is here, guys. Go grab yourself 6 Gryph-hounds.
It's not, because it's not the first time that they've been set up on the table. So the Gryph-hounds don't even work for this Stormkeep Patrol Battalion.
Oh, for the first time. Oh, that's a jerk one. It says, for the first time within 10, because you deploy them and then you teleport them. So anything that comes from reserve, so the old Scions of the Storm, or anything that is set up initially, like Shadow Warriors, that would work. Oh, you sneaky git.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, the Gryph-hound meta isn't quite here, but they still are the goodest boys in the Mortal Realms, that's for sure.
That's amazing. It's so good. They got 3 wounds apiece, which is quite generous. They've got no armor save. I always like the fact they've got a 9-inch move, so they're nice little. They're fast on the board, and I love the fact as well. They can make that 6-inch retreat move after their attacks have been resolved. So as you mentioned, snipping around, scoring an objective, going in and repositioning. You can retreat, but you don't have to be outside of combat. You can just you can make a retreat move, so you just have to be outside of 3.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Well, I dig it. So you got yourself 2 units of Liberators. You've got yourself the Warhammer and Shield. Why not swords?
So swords compared to hammers. So hammers profile is hits on 4s, wounds on 3s. Swords are hits on 3s, wounds on 4s. Now, if you had, there is actually a fair bit of reroll wounds sort of spells and all that inside Stormcast Eternals, but not in this list. So, yeah, having the better to wound roll is better than the better to hit, especially when they're getting +1 to hit from the Allegiance ability. They're getting potentially another +1 to hit against monsters and things with over 5 wounds.
Yeah.
So they can already be hitting on 2s quite easily. Personally, I do run a unit of 30 with the double hammers, which gives them exploding 6s, which is always nice. But that's just because of how I used to run Vanguard Wing was with that unit. So I've just got the models, so I just run them instead. But if I was to start from ground zero, I would definitely go 60 with just hammers and shields.
Yeah, yeah. And the Grand Hammer's doing mortal wounds. Is that from memory?
Nah, they're just 2 damage with rend.
2 damage.
So
They used to be mortals.
No, you're thinking your Retributors. Retributors do the mortals, yeah.
I just remember this is how long it's been since I've played OG Stormcast.
I can't stress this enough. This list does not do damage much. It will add attrition to your opponent, but it will be a slow grind. But you're always having a bit of fun with it anyway, in my experiences anyway. But yeah, having those 6 in each unit of the Grand Hammers is essential.
And I think that's the key, right? Like when I was initially thinking about this type of build, a lot of people that are in my communities were going, "Oh, Gav, the Gav bomb's back," which Gabriel Shawhart, using a couple of CP to basically guarantee the charge and get stuck in. But as you said, what you want to do is really the Gargant play, which is get on an objective, sit there as long as possible, grind it out with your rerolls to saves or your pluses to save, and then through the attrition wars on the 5+, bring that unit back at 60 wounds, 30 models. So that's the game you're playing. You're not playing the damage game.
No. If I was doing the damage game, I would definitely look at running 40 Sequitors or like 2 units of 10 Sequitors instead, and just shuffle the list around to get an Arcanum in there as a general, and go from there. Because 20 Sequitors hit harder than what 30 Liberators do. There's not as many bodies, and they're the same points costs. But yeah, they've got their reroll saves. They can reroll hits, and they're still redeemers, so they can still come back.
Would you, if you were obviously theory crafting here, if you were going to go Sequitur build, would you stay hammers?
Probably, yeah, because they can, after they do their deep strike, they can still move because they're not getting the +1 to hit and save like what the Liberators do. So you're actually going to be 4 inches away from your opponent after you do the Castellant buff. So they're going to be on a 3+, potentially re-rolling. So it's not so bad.
No, I was just thinking, because some players might have joined Age of Sigmar during the Soul Wars. They may not own Liberators, and they might only have, I guess, the Soul Wars type models. Yeah, like those guys. So, it still works. It's just in a bit of a different way.
Yeah, probably hits, as I was saying, probably hits harder. There are less models on the board for the same points, but those models are definitely doing more than what the Liberators do. But I submitted this list to you just to show the extreme that everyone was sort of talking about. Yeah.
No, I dig it. And some questions are coming up in the chat from Eric and many others. And as a free guild player, I got super excited. I put on my my pantaloons. I got super excited to talk about the free guild guard, because you have brought in a unit of 10 mustaches in your army. The question that Eric brings up, and it's a very valid question, is, are the free guild guard better than another unit of Liberators? Given that, we're already stacking all these great rules with libs. But what are the free guild guard bringing that a unit of Liberators, and you do have spare points?
Yep.
What are they bringing to the table?
So it's 10 models instead of 5 for objective purposes. And you can also string that unit of 10 out way further than what you can 5 libs. So this army, as I think I mentioned it before, that most of your list is right up in your opponent's grill. So you've only got 3 Griffhounds and 10 free guild guard to hold the fort, basically, while the rest of your heroes and stuff are in the midfield. pushing up. But yeah, that's the only reason why is it's bodies, and it's also good to have a city unit in something that can take it, right? So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's valid. I think the cheap screen, the 10 bodies instead of the 5, all valid reasons. And you know, there are 3 different types of free guild. You've got the sword and shields, the halberds, and the spears. Nobody takes spears. Don't even think about taking spears. Halberd are all right. They have rend 1. They're okay. But you definitely get your biggest bang for buck having swords and shields. So
yeah, you want them more survivable. Just that 4-up saving combat's always really good to have.
Yeah, it could be a cheap objective scorer. It could be someone that sits behind the board, someone who might screen your backfield and try to stop someone from teleporting into you. That's the role that I would see those 10 free guild guard playing.
Yeah. I also opted for the free guild guard because they were actually less points than the liberators, just to really sort of knuckle down that triumph roll potential. So
yeah, and you could. I was just thinking, free guild handgun as a battle line,
points, yep.
But they're also battle line order. I don't think they're battle line cities. So you could take.
You're right, yep.
Yes, you could take them, because I think the handgunners have a really interesting rule that if you've got your musician in your handgunners and someone ends a charge within 3, they can shoot before combat commences. So you could do a little bit of damage. The free guild guard won't do much damage. They like hit on 4s, wound on 4s. They're not very good. They're good in a block of like 40. They get some benefits by going up like 20s and 30s. But the handgunners. The handgunner with the long rifle, because the long rifle has a 30-inch threat range, you ignore Lookout Sir, so you don't get the -1 hit penalty with the that could be an alternative build if you weren't going for the Triumph.
Yep, for sure. That's definitely an option. Honestly, I didn't even consider the handgunners, but they fit in perfectly there.
Well, just with like the little character sniper, just, you know, the handgunners with rend 1, it's such a deterrent from people charging you, but 2, having that long rifle, being able to like chip that 1 wound, and, you know, and taking out those small heroes and not having to worry about Lookout Sir can be quite useful.
Yeah, you could even do crossbowmen for some more weighted dice if you wanted to. They're 100 points as well.
Yeah, and as long as they don't suffer a wound, they get to double shoot if they don't move. So
I can't remember what. I've never actually ran them.
The rules have changed a little bit. I just love the long rifle in the handgunner.
Yeah.
Just that
Everyone loves
inches
a good sniper rifle.
It's so good.
Headshots, like a boom.
Nothing worse than you shooting a hero and it's got 1 wound left. You just need to take it out and pop it. Cool.
Yeah, that's very good.
And to answer Adrian's question, is there any other allegiance abilities that affect only 1 unit in the book? So is there any other allegiance abilities that affect only 1 unit in the book? I'm not quite sure what you mean there. I'm missing.
If you're referring to the Liberator rule, then it's just Liberators, and they can give extra bravery to other units, but no other unit gets the +1 to hit and save. That's what you're talking about, mate.
That's what you're talking about. Cool. I'm thinking free guild. This is the free guild show now. Let's talk about how we make the use of that 1 in 4. Comes in, as we mentioned, 1980. So we do have the 20 points of flex, 170 wounds plus the additional wounds from the free Griffhound that comes with some of the heroes, plus the ability to, on a CP on a 5+, bring back a unit at full strength. Being those 2 Liberator units. You can't bring back the free guild. It's just those 2 Lib units.
Oh, no.
Is there anything else you'd want to say about this Hammers list? I mean, it's rock solid. As you mentioned, this build is more of a defensive build than an offensive build. If you wanted to do an offensive build, you bring in your Sequitors and you're more of your Soul Wars type units. But this particular build is a sit there, grind, defense, attrition, and then bring models back and just like break the spirits of your opponents.
Yeah. This has been tried and tested by me. Games in person too. Haven't touched on TTS. I don't play TTS, but that's neither here or there. But played 5 games. I've won 4, lost 1. I've beaten Croak with all the salamanders and shit. New Daughters of Cain with Morathi. few other armies. I've only lost against Catacross OBR, which is another very grindy army like that. So, yeah, just tried and tested. It's got my tick of approval if that's what you want to get out of the game.
And we are very, we are very fortunate that we're able to play games in real life. So that privilege is not lost on me. So, it's definitely not lost on me when I'm like, oh man, tournaments, got to cancel tournaments, but I can still play. But let's not get into that. Let's talk about your second build, and that is the Tempest Lords, the ones that I wasn't expecting. I truly was not expecting Tempest Lords. I was thinking the other build, because I asked Joel, and I asked all my guests to give me 2 lists so we can kind of talk about some of the variety. I expected an Anvils of Heldenhammer list. I'll be brutally honest. I expected that as your second build. But what you've given me is a Tempest Lords. So we will get to the list in a second, but talk to me about Tempest Lords. What attracted you when it came to Broken Realms Morathi rules and this particular, I guess, chamber compared to the others?
So Stormcast as a faction at the moment is shit, right? I think we can all agree on that. It doesn't do very well outside of the one shootcast list. And I'm a firm believer of making strawberry jam out of pig shit. So, playing Bok, I'm always looking for little things to spam and sort of really buff units up. And what better way to do that than with command points? And what Tempest Lords gives you basically is just a massive CP battery. So it gives you an equivalent of the old Etherquartz brooch as the artifact, which is awesome.
Why is CP so important to you, and why would you want to spam CP? Because I imagine you're not inspiring presence. You don't want to just re-roll once to hit. Like, what do you want out of the CP?
So there's one thing that you can spam in Stormcast Eternals still, and that's off the Lord Arcanum on Dracoline. Yeah, Dracoline, who can add +1 or give +1 attacks per CP for the Dracoline mounted evocators. Yeah, that's basically the gist of it. That's the one thing that you can use it for. You can use it to I don't know what else you'd use it for, to be honest. But this is the build for this.
All right, this is the CP spam. You're going to get yourself your Grand Strategist at the start of your hero phase. Roll the dice on a 4+. You get yourself a command point. Not bad. What else you get? You're going to get your Rousing Auditory. You've also got your Bonds of Noble Duty, and you've also got the Patrician's Helm. Are any of those command abilities, command traits, or artifacts of power becoming important to you?
Yeah, the add 1 to wound rolls for the general's pretty good, right?
That's your command trait. Add 1 to the wound rolls for attacks made by the general's melee weapons, while the general's within 6 of a Tempest Lord unit. Okay.
The command ability is good. This is what I like about this is it's all good. The command ability is reroll wound rolls of 1, which is kind of nice if you're not running evocators to use their reroll save spell. Reroll wound spell. But even then, it's still just good to have, right? And then the artifact, as I said before, is just an Etherquartz brooch. All 4 of those, so the ability, command trait, command ability, and artifact, are all useful. And it's one of the very rare ones in the entire game that you get the quad. So,
there's usually normally 1 tax. Yeah, they're all quite useful. And I'm seeing the command trait and the command ability probably works quite well by having your general along with some type of unit that is going to, I guess, support that general. Maybe it's going to be kitty cats supporting your kitty cat general, or who knows what you're going to show me. I'm going to be as surprised as everyone else.
We've already alluded to it.
All right, well, let's go into the list. I think, as you mentioned, all 4 of those are useful, and I can start to see where the CP is going to come into play. So what do we have in our Tempest Lords? We have the Lord Arcanum on the Celestial Dracoline. It is the general. It has Terrifying Aspect as the spell. You have the Pride Leader as the mount trait. You have another Lord Arcanum on Celestial Dracoline. It has the spell Azurite Halo, as well as the Bounding Leap mounted trait. You've got a Lord-Celestant with the Patricia's Helm that comes from Tempest Helm. Tempest Lords. I'm going to say Tempest Eye. I tried to stop saying Tempest Eye 5 times, and I still caught myself out. You've got 2 Lord-Celestant. You've got one, with the Patricia's Helm. Oh no, Castellan. It's one's a Castellan.
One Stealth and one Castellan.
Why do they look so similar? That is stupid.
OG Stormcast, mate. Everything's Lord or something.
Hashtag think about the content creators. You've got the Lord-Castellant with the mystical light, Tempest, the Lantern of the Tempest, and you've got 2 of the 2D McToots, the Knight Heraldor. I love the little 2Ds. 2D McToots. You've also got 6 evocators on Dracolines. They have the Celestial Blades. You've got 10 Free Guild Guard, 5 Liberators with their hammer and shield, and the 1 Grand Hammer. Then you've got another big block of 40 Free Guild Guard with sword and shield. You've also got yourself the Warden of the Stormkeeps. You've only taken 1 battalion. That's our CP generating, not our teleporting rule.
Yeah.
Cool. Alrighty, so let's go to the top. Well, let's go where you want to start. We talked a little bit about the kitty cats. I remember seeing kitty cats becoming a little bit popular when Dave the Master Kerr was running them with a big block of kitty cats, and they were quite brutal. I think there were 6.
Backed up by the ballistas, from memory.
Yeah. Talk to me about how you're using with the Tempest Lords and your little combination.
Yeah, so again, just farming all that CP, mate. So there's 6 heroes in the battalion. So that's 5 dice at the start of my first hero phase, 5 up as a CP.
And your generals are 2+?
Yep, 2+ for the general, and then every hero phase, a 4+, I get another one. So really looking to crank that up, right? But we'll start off at the top. So the general, 7 wounds, 3 up save, is a wizard, so can cast an Unbind 1 or Dispel. The spell itself is -1 bravery it's a -1 bravery aura that you cast onto a friendly Stormcast unit, who then passes that on to enemy units. And all the Dracolines, so the 6 Dracolines and also those 2 Arcanums, they already have a base -1 bravery, so it's just adding to that, doubling down on maybe -2, right, if it matters. Why I really like the Arcanums for all 4 of them. So there's 4 variants. They've all got a rule called Prime Electrodes, which is when you cast Arcane Bolt, it's always D3, unless if you roll a 10+, it does D6 mortals, and that's really clutch because it's just extra mortal wounds basically. So not normally using the terrifying aspect, they can always Mystic Shield or Arcane Bolt if they need to.
No, you're right. I remember running around a Lord Arcanum on foot, and I that was one of my 1-in-4s for my Cities of Sigmar Hallowheart, and I remember being able to use that, so being able to turn an Arcane Bolt into a D6, and being able to move an endless spell an extra 6 inches, which was like blew my mind. But I love that little ability to kind of boost up your Arcane Bolt. That could be very tasty, especially for like when you got a spell, you're like, I don't really know what to do. Oh crap! That's 6 wounds. Yeah.
There's an artifact in Stormcast, which isn't in this list. It's just a little side rant. Well, not rant, but side story. There's an artifact in the game called Staff of Focus for Stormcast wizards, so the Arcanums. You can, once per game, give them +1 to cast, and then +1 to the mortal wounds from just the regular spells that they cast. So you can actually get them doing 7 mortal wounds, potentially, if you roll a 6 on that. And I've done that once with my Torah. 7 mortal wounds out of 1 spell. Just Stormcast Wizard. Oh.
Can I just say I'm still surprised how powerful Pack Leader is. Like I'm looking at add 2 to the attack characteristics of this model's claws and fangs, while this model's within 6 inches of the Dracoline Guard model. That's awesome. It's so cool.
Yeah, Pride Leader. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. That's the mount trait, isn't it, for the general? Yeah. So that's normally hanging back and just buffing the 6 kitty cats. Yeah.
So you've got 2 of those. Why do you have 2? Why do we have 2?
Redundancy for 1. Secondly, I've always wanted to run 2, and last night's battle report I actually did manage to. And they're just really good because they've got 7 attacks base, all potentially doing D3 damage with Ren 3s and 3s, or however it comes out in the wash. But it's another wizard for one, and this particular one, Bounding Leap, has a 6-inch pilot, so it doesn't have to charge. It can pile in outside of 3 inches. And from my gaming experience, it's always good to have something like that if you have access to it, just to fight out of sequence. Yeah.
I'm just rereading this cycle of the storm rule as well, which is on both.
Oh, yeah,
those.
that's a thing too. Yeah,
that was. I was sitting there going, why on earth would this person take 2 Lord Arcanums on Celestial Dracos when you could take a Knight Incantor? You could take, there's so many other choices you could take. And I'm looking at that rule we didn't talk about, which is the Cycle of the Storm, which once per turn, when a friendly Stormcast model is slain within 18 of the model, instead of removing the slain model, you can heal a wound allocated to it. This model cannot use it on itself. By having 2 of those, does that... So it means you're keeping...
So, for example, say you've a model, like say one of them has... Say the Lord-Celestant, for example, has 1 wound left.
Yeah.
And you do 2 damage to him, he still lives with the Cycle of the Storm. Doubling down on that doesn't come into effect too often, but it definitely keeps those 6 Evocators on Dracolines around for that a little bit longer. It's not bad.
And someone was asking before about, what if someone takes down your Lord Arcanum with the Pride Leader? Well, if you've got another Lord Arcanum around, you could use that Lord Arcanum to keep the other Lord Arcanum on 1 wound.
Yeah. So you've got that. Sure, you won't get the Pride Leader's +1 to hit, isn't it, for the claws?
Yeah. The Pride Leader was +2 attacks with the claws within 6 of the Dragothian Guard.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, anyway, so it doesn't matter if that lives or not, because you've got the command ability to spam to give them extra attacks.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I was just thinking the combination of the cycle, just the Cyclone of the Storm being able to keep models alive. So,
yeah.
Cool.
The Lord-Celestant is in there, tax, but he's also going to be having the Ethercourt Brooch proxy. Just because he's a nice little foot hero who can dish out some mortal wounds with his cloak, and he doesn't need line of sight to do that, so you can hide him nice and easily. He's also got the command ability, which can add +1 to hit to a friendly unit if he's within 3 inches of enemy units, which is always nice as well. So that's sort of, just it can potentially buff the Evocators as well. Yeah.
And then you've got your Lord-Castellant, which has the Lantern of the Tempest, which we had in the last list, didn't we?
We did have the Mystic Light, Lantern of the Tempest. That was on the Veritant in the last one, just because he's in the action. This one here, though, is the Castellant, and missile weapons have to reroll hits of 6s to anything that they're targeting that's wholly within 12 inches of that guy. It's the best artifact in Stormcast, in my opinion. It's just so good in this current meta when you've got like skinks and salamanders and the shooty snakes from Doras of Cain, KO, making them re-roll their hits. It takes a lot of the sting out of their output.
Juicy in the chat's also saying that also within 6 inches of a Castellant or the Veritant, they have 4 attacks each when they're wholly within. I'm not sure what exactly we're
the Griffhounds is talking about there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, cool. I'm glad you're all over this. There's a bazillion artifacts and combinations in Stormcast. I thought I was bad for being a Cities player. Now, you've got 2 Knight Heraldors. Now, we know that Knight Heraldors are pretty awesome because they get to destroy terrain and do damage. Is that the only reason you're taking Heraldors compared to some other type of cheap hero that could help you with your CP spam? Or is there something else that these guys have that is worth re-looking at?
They've got 2 abilities, and that's run and charge, and you can also retreat, run and charge with the Heralds. And then they can do their 2D toots on terrain and just do some AoE mortals, which is always handy. lot of Stormcast armies who have a lot of foot heroes have a lot of low-key mortal wound output that you're probably not expecting when you just look at the list on a piece of paper. But it all adds up, you know. They can dish out a lot of splash. So, yeah. That's why they're in there for, to toot the Evocators on Dracolines, and also one of the, well, just to do whatever they need to. But having those Evocators on Dracolines being able to retreat and charge is huge, especially on their 12-inch movement. So they're not getting bogged down by something. They can just piss off and go and kill something that they need to.
And there's a lot of faction terrain now as well. You know, if you think about the armies that you're playing, there's probably a good 50% that are going to have it, whether it's OBR, whether it's, I mean, Deepkin normally put their terrain in your side of the board, but you'll have OBR and Seraphon have terrain. You've got Sylvaneth, poor old Sylvaneth, Beast of Chaos, Glimpsbite Gits. Like the list just keeps continuing, the more pot for ogres. So being able to even just like do some damage, especially when someone's hugging a Skaven Narhold, you know, being able to do damage to 3 points of the board. On top of the regular terrain piece. So I do like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially like if someone's got like arcane terrain or commanding terrain, that'll make them second guess taking that terrain.
They're very handy. The Heralders, I really like them. They're just a good, nice utility piece to have, and yeah, just some cool rules. You can get across the board with them in a turn if you need to, or if you toot something else that's fast enough.
Another Stormcast hero that I've come to really appreciate is the Venator, the alternative build to the Azeroth, and that little bow, that star-faded arrow. Just, you know, being able to once per. I mean, it's a bit of like a lucky dip. You know, it's a once per game. You only shoot once, but it can do up to D6 plus 3 damage to a model, so it can be quite brutal. But it's sometimes it goes off, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. It's not a bad little sort of pocket hero to have, just to dish out some damage at range, for sure. Yep.
So you got your 6 kitty cats, you got your 10 free guild guard, your 5 libs, your 40 free guild guard.
Yes.
Now we know kitty cats are going to combine with our Lord Arcanum on kitty cat, but are they there as damage dealers? Are they hammers or anvils? Like where are they playing on the table?
So that unit of 6 is taking every single buff that this army can provide and kill as much stuff as they can before they eventually die. That's the entire point of this army. It's a bit of a meme list. You know, I had them last night with 10 attacks each on the Dracolines, doing D3 damage each. 2s rerolling 1s, 3s rerolling, neg 1 Ren, D3 damage. I only rolled half the dice and I killed 8 Iron Guts in one go. So, yeah, they're mental, especially on the charge. And that's why the Heralders pair so well with them for, is you're always guaranteeing that you're getting that sort of the D3 damage on the charge with the claws. And they can also naturally re-roll their charge rolls, so you're not spending a CP there. Yeah, they're just a really solid unit. And they're a wizard too, and they can give themselves re-roll wounds, which is awesome.
So you've got your 5 wounds. They've got a 4-up save. They've got 12-inch move. They can re-roll the charge. As you've said, you can stack a whole bunch of buffs to these evocators on the Drax. Out of curiosity, why? I mean, obviously, I'm going to ask a potentially silly question. Yeah. Why not take 2 units of 3 and have a bit more versatility on the table as opposed to 1 unit of 6?
It's a good question. There is one thing, is that they're not wizards when they're 2 models. So if you kill one, they're not a wizard anymore. I just like the 6 because you're not having to split your buffs. So you just put it all in one. 3 isn't really scary, in my opinion. Just that big unit of 6 on the board is always nice to see. But yeah, it's honestly, it's personal opinion. I prefer the 6 over the 3 because even though you're generating a lot of CP, you're still spending just as much as you're generating. So if you have to split that up to 2 units, then your buffs sort of go out of whack and they're not as effective, while you're still putting punch in 2 different areas. It's
You're splitting you're splitting your force, and you're gonna require the double CP to look. There's pros and cons, I guess. You're putting all your eggs in one basket, but that basket hits like a freight train.
Yes.
So I just be very careful, because all of a sudden, like when I see this on the table, that's now priority number 1 is take down the kitty cats, and 10 free guild guard, 40 free guild guard, 5 liberators. It's not it's not going to save the game. It's those kitty cats that are going to win it, and they're going to do all the damage.
Yeah. Look, I made this list, and actually I ran it last night just to sort of more try it out than anything. Just to prove the concept, I suppose. And it does work. It works a lot better in a Stormkeep than what it does outside of, just in the regular Allegiance, by getting, those 50 extra models on the board of the Free Guild Guard. Just makes a huge difference. With board presence, while you do only have the 1 unit to buff still, it again hits like a freight train. So, it's not the best army, but it'll definitely do lots, and it'll surprise a lot of people, I think, with just how much attacks and CP that you can sort of churn through.
And I guess the cycle of the storm as well, being once per turn, bringing back 1 model that was slain within 18 as well. So those kitty cats are just going to stay alive as long as possible. Yes, they're only going to be on 1 wound, but they're not dead.
Yeah, the first one's got 7 wounds essentially. If you look at it like that, with a 3-up save. So,
it might be worth it. A spellcaster might be worth having like an Emerald Life Swarm in there just to heal up those kitty cats and just be super annoying.
Yeah. Well, funny you mentioned that. This list comes in at 1950. So there's a couple of options that you can do. You could do Emerald Life Swarm. You could do just an extra command point. So you start with 2 base. It's just go all in on that. You can drop some stuff out, drop the 40 Free Guild Guard for 30 Longbeards. If you want to, I think they're 240 for 30, and that gives you enough for cogs if you wanted to really get them in there quick. If you're playing the realms, you'd take this in Gur, and then you'd give them wild form. So now they're +4 to run and charge. They can run and charge and reroll their charge. So there's lots of play around with this army, and you can do it however you want. Really, you can throw in a second Castellant and drop a Heralder if you wanted to, just make sure that one of your Evocator Arcanums are alive for a little bit longer. Yeah, I don't know. For an army that's isn't really consistent at much, there's still a lot going on, a lot of cogs that need to be turned, and it can really do the damage. Even
if you're not playing in the realms, I just wanted to look at the wording on. So the in the cities of Sigmar, you've also got the battle mage, and you can make a battle mage from Gur, and it will have wild form. So wild form is casting value of 5, and you can pick 1 unit within 12 inches of the caster and add +2 to the run and the charge roll for that unit. So
there you go. Drop out a Heralder and fit him in. They're 140 now, aren't they?
He 110. I think currently they're 110.
It doesn't matter. You can just do whatever.
Yeah, there's just a guaranteed way to get a +2 to the run and the charge. If you play in a meta that doesn't play with the realms, or you can't guarantee yourself a realms, that's not a bad investment, and it's a 1 in 4 of your cities into Stormcast, and it doesn't need any buffs there. That's just a 5's very generous to cast.
Very easy to do.
Yeah, just got to avoid the Nagashas and the Teclises and those supercasters, but 5 is statistically you'll pass it every time.
Yep.
You've got yourself 10 free guild guard, that's cheap battle line, 40 free guild guard, it's cheap battle line, it has the massive regiments discount, and it's just 40 wounds. It's a big block of 40. Is that all is that the reason why you've taken a big block of guard and another unit of guard?
It really pushes the wounds up on this list. So it's sitting at 125.
Yeah,
which is quite high still for a Stormcast army. But you look, and 50 of those wounds are just free guild guard.
And they definitely want the sword and the shield because that does help make them a little bit more durable.
You could swap the 10 out for handgunners if you wanted to. All the discussion that we had before on the last list comes over this too. You can really mix and match it up however you really want to.
Yeah. There's a lot of conditional battle line in City. So if you removed yourself the free guild guard from this list, you do have to find some battle line slots. And there's not a lot of, from memory, most of them are like, if your general's a dwarf, unlock this. If you're a dark elf, you're a whatever. There's a whole bunch of like, if you're Tempest Eye, but there is like, I think it's crossbowmen, handgunners, and guard, or just unconditional battle line. So could be a good option. They're quite cheap.
Yep.
Anything else about the particular list? Obviously, it's a CP generator. You're getting your 4+. You're getting a whole bunch from the Wardens of the Stormkeep. You've got your Aether Quartz brooch essentially through the Patricia's Helm. Anything else other than like throwing a sheer amount of CP? Making a super smashy block of Evocators on Dracolines.
No, that's pretty much it. It's nice and simple, mate.
And then you obviously got 2D McToots through the Knight Heraldors.
Yes. Yep.
Could you build this particular list in another, I guess, chamber? Could you make this anvils? Could you make this like anyone, like the Astral Templars, or is the fact that this is a Tempest Lord key to this because of the command traits and the artifact?
Yeah, that artifact makes this list, in my opinion. Just being able to spam it to give the Dracolines extra attacks is key. You could run this in any of the other ones for sure. Maybe not Hammers of Sigmar. There's no real point there. But you could run this in any of the other hosts or host lists. You could run it with Staunch Defender if you wanted to. You will have less damage output. You won't be able to nuke units that you want to easily with the Evocators. But yeah, I just like the Tempest Lords because you can get stupid numbers and just guarantee that like them killing stuff. So
yeah, and like for anyone who's watched these shows in the past, this is not showing you just the one and only list that you can build. It's just showing you some examples of how we take advantage of the Stormkeep and the new rules from the Broken Realms Morathi and put that into practice. And whether you want to build yourself a Hallowed Knight, a Knights Excelsior, Anvils of Heldenhammer, you can take this theory and think, how do I bring 1 in 4 units, whether it's to bring in a cheap battle line so you can put more points into something like what we've done here with the more kitty cats. If we had Liberators, we wouldn't have as many points, or being able to get like a big block of 40, that could be a wonderful screen. You might be playing in a meta that has a lot of turn 1 charging Iron Jaws, so that might be a nice thing to bring in. You're struggling with wizards, so you want to bring yourself in a strong wizard. You might bring yourself in a Phoenix, and that's a nice little survivable hero that's going to charge up the board alongside your kitty cats, or maybe your Dracolines or whatever it might be. But I think Cities has like 60 War Scrolls, and Stormcast has about 60 War Scrolls. So you've got some nice little combinations. Just be mindful that Cities doesn't combine in Stormcast with your keyword synergy. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah. And one more thing about the Stormkeep rules is you can use any of the other battalions in a Stormkeep list. So if you wanted to take, I don't know, Grand Convocation or Cleansing Phalanx or any of the other ones, you can do that. So yeah, it's something to keep in mind.
And it doesn't go the other way. So you can't take your Broken Realms Morathi battalions and bring them into your normal Battle Tome Stormcast. It doesn't work that way. It specifically says Stormkeep armies, which is what this is.
Yep, that's right.
From your games, I know you mentioned you have played this on the channel. You've had a bit of practice with this. What have you learnt about this particular build that maybe you were surprised about? You realized that a way that you used to build it and used to play with it in the Battle Tome, you didn't have certain tools. Like how did you find not having the Scions of the Storm, for example, or Is there any things that you thought you would miss that you didn't? I guess what's the reflection point here?
So I wouldn't be running like 60 Liberators in just a regular army. There's just no point. Stormkeep makes them worth playing with the +1 to hit and save. So yeah, wouldn't even consider it teleporting them in with Signs of the Storm or anything. It's just no point. And then with the Evocator list, you could still run that outside of cities, outside of the Stormkeep, sorry, but the Wardens of the Stormkeep battalion it just sort of turns it up to 11, turns that concept up to 11, and just gets you all those extra CP to start off with. So I don't know. I used to run something similar just in the regular Stormcast army, but yeah, as I was saying, this just cranks it up.
Yeah, by having those extra CP, because you got the 2+ from the general, so let's assume you're going to get that free 1. If you have 5 or 6 heroes like you had, I would imagine you would at least get 1 additional there, if not 2 on average. So you probably got yourself 1 from the start of the game, 1 from the battalion, maybe 2 additional ones from the hero generator ones. You might get that 4+. Like you might have turn 1 5 CP. 6 or more if you're lucky.
I had 6 in my hero phase last night.
So straight away, like it just opens up so many options for re-rolling charges, adding re-rolls to hit. Hey, if you run the list under points as well, you might get yourself a triumph as well. So
yeah, it's all rosy, isn't it? Get that re-roll saves on the evocators, mate. They're not going anywhere. So
I think that's the big thing that I learned in my time playing Gits is, when you have an arsenal of CP, like the world just opens up, whether it's you're playing in the realms and playing with a realm command ability, having all these heroes and being able to use what you want when you want. You don't have to worry about being double turned because you've got CP to handle a double turn. The world is brighter when you have a bank of CP. So I like what you've done.
Yeah, nothing's worse when you need that 1 CP to do something crucial, like pass a battle shock test or X, whatever, and you just don't have it. So yeah, as you're saying, having more CP is better than having none.
Let alone going into a priority roll, and you're like, do I spend the CP, my last CP on this battle shock, and risk rolling a 6, or do I save it and then I get double turn? I've only got 1 CP, or if I win it, like it just by having 5, you're like. That's what I found with Gits. I'm like, I've got 5 CP. I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, just fucking I'll spend it, whatever.
In fact, you have the next turn. I don't need it. You have it. I've got CP out the wazoo. I'm just like, oh, you want to borrow a CP? Cool. Pay me back later. Pay me back at the next tournament.
Go buy me a beer.
Whatever. Have a free CP. Anything else you've learnt by playing this build? I like the diversity. I like that we're seeing some of these old things back. I wonder if we'll see prosecutors come back. They had their little time in the sun for a while. I love seeing some of these older heroes like the Knight Heraldor, like the Castellant. I love seeing the Lord-Celestant on Dracoline. Again, things that we haven't seen in such a long time. And if you have joined Stormcast during Soul Wars, it's now an excuse to go out and buy the old models, and you can pick them up pretty cheap as well.
Oh, for sure. Like those Arcanums on Dracolines, they cost like $30. They're one of the easy to build kits, so they're nothing. It's quite kind of a cheap army to get into Stormcast because you got so many options of easy to build and just boxes. They're in the Soul Wars box. They're in the first box. You can pick up a set of them for bugger all. So.
And if you were lucky, like us Australians, and you got the Mortal Realms magazine, you have so many.
Oh. How's your Stormcast army going, Coach?
Funnily enough, about 6 months ago, 12 months ago, I actually got a 3,000 point Stormcast painted army for $160. I got it as a tournament buy buster for my GT, so I wanted to have an army that I could just get a buy buster to play, but I do have an OG Stormcast army right there, and I could do it with Daughters of Cain as well with the Shadowhunter Compact.
Oh yeah, that's not a bad battalion either, is it?
No, it's not bad actually. Snakes and Judicators, but that's the Daughters of Cain show, not the Stormcast. I really like it. I really like what they've brought out. I think it's a different type of build. And the good thing is you can always take your army and run it under the old rules. You haven't lost anything. You've only gained flexibility. So play it. If you don't like it, go back to how you always played it. It's some interesting ways to, and you can, if you really like, dropping from the sky, you can still bring in your what's it called, the Celestant Prime, like he still comes from the sky.
Yep, who can also go in that hero battalion. It's the only battalion you can go into, so that's an option.
Get yourself a unit of Shadow Warriors who could be your 1 in 4 cities and just come from the sky, come from the sides of the board. You don't need to synergize them at all. It's just so many options.
Shark and me. Have some fun. That's what I love this book so much, because it's just given me so many options, so many things to think about. I can go with those dumb ideas and sort of tweak it into something which can work on the table as well, which the current Stormcast Battletomes just never allowed me to sort of run with my imagination.
Yeah, I dig it. I want to see someone run a whole bunch of flagellants, and have like these big block of religious nutbags running up the board.
They can also be battle line in a Stormcast army, because their battle line if your general is a human, and all the Stormcasts have human keyword.
I knew there was human, but I wasn't thinking that they had the human keyword. Cheeky.
I'm fairly certain they do.
All right, don't at me, guys. If we're wrong, please don't at me. I said that crossbowmen, handgunners, and guard were your battle line. But Joel, if people want to see this in action, they can go see Measured Gaming on YouTube. Go check it out. I think I've got the link down below. You also have your podcast with MC Dave, Bush Radios. Again, don't play it at work, or at least have AirPods buds in, and don't play it on the loudspeaker. But if people want to talk to you and list tech with you, you're a big Beast of Chaos player as well. Where can they find you, chat with you, list tech with you?
Yeah, look, Twitter's probably going to be the best. I try and reply to everything, and the link's down below. Well, I think I'm just at Joel McGrath _. So
yeah, I mean,
easy, whatever.
So your Twitter handle, he occasionally jumps back into my Discord every now and then. Now I've got his content.
Tag me in that, and I get summoned, and I'll come and stay in there for 5 minutes.
Thanks. Good to see you. Is there any shout outs you want to make? I'm sure the Measured Boys have been waiting for a bit of love from you. So
I can't wait to see what's going on in the group chat after I'm done. No shout outs. Thanks again, Coach, for having me on, mate. It's always good to come on and talk some turkey. So I hope my behaviour was good enough. You'll have me back on again.
You were great. You were my most complained about video I've ever had in 3 years. That Beast of Chaos video for the first time with hot garbage audio. I think people are still whinging about, but your audio is 10 out of 10. So,
we did do that in the Bok episode, so that should have been better. Hopefully, this one's all right too. So, new good. Phone should be pretty good.
New year, new Joel. Joel, thank you for your time. I learnt a lot. I had a lot of fun. I'm excited about the Stormcast. I'm scared about those flying dudes coming in my face within 9. It's going to be nasty. But more importantly, we're going to see our libs back on the table, and that's actually not a bad thing. I do like seeing diversity. I do like seeing people bring different builds. I don't like everyone playing shoot cast. So explore the book, play with your castigators, your judicators, bring in some of your redeemers, your paladins, bring in your kitty cats, play around and bring something different to the table. I think that's what excites me.
Yeah, very good.
All right, and I'm going to call this out. Sorry, Warsaw, and we're literally ending here. So that was a great, wonderful 90-minute chat about Stormcast. Guys, thanks for your time. Let's wrap this up. Joel, thanks again, and I'll see you in a month's time. Yeah,
sounds good, mate. Bring on VGT.
Bring on my Gargans. I'm going to start stomping stomping.
You can try.
I'll try. All right, see you guys. I hope you found that discussion valuable. If you did, give the video the old thumbs up. And if you have a comment or an insight, leave it in the comment section below. The champions over here are my AOS Coach Patreons and YouTube members. So you guys are bloody legends. Thank you for all the support. If you want to know more about the support programs, the links are below down here in the episode description, along with a link to the Discord server, so we can continue this conversation. Until next time, don't forget to name your characters and have a good one.